Hello, this is the I Don't Know What I'm Talking About podcast, and on the I Don't Know channel. And this is the Game 2 edition of Cavs versus Knicks. And today I want to get into the Cavs, how the Knicks kind of play a dangerous game with how they let the other team control the game and then they come back at the end, even though that didn't really happen tonight. And Josh Hart, how he played tonight, and Mikal Bridges, and how he played tonight, and how he's been playing lately. Those are the main things. So, starting with the Cavs, I mainly looked at the Cavs tonight. So I think Evan Mobley played really great at the beginning, and he's got to find a way because he does that a lot of games. I've seen other games where he is the main part of their offense at the beginning of the game, and he's aggressive driving to the basket. He's aggressive in post-ups, and he's physical in post-ups. And he's got to be able to sustain that through the whole game. He only got 8 shots, and that's not enough. He's too offensively talented to only get 8 shots. I realize you have Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, who are better offensive players. But Charles Barkley was saying it at halftime, the Knicks really can't. He's getting the 4 a lot of the time, and they can't deal with him down there. He is an amazingly talented player and looks like one of the most offensively talented players in the league. When he's aggressive, he's so much better when he's aggressive. And I don't know. He's just got to become a bigger focal point of their offense because I think Charles Barkley might be right. I think he might be their main advantage, and they might need to play inside out more. I think James Harden is a better player than Evan Mobley probably, but I think Evan Mobley in this series could get the ball a lot more. So. I'll talk about Jared Allen next. Jared Allen had 13 points and 10 rebounds this game, and honestly, maybe I wasn't watching as closely as I needed to be. I probably wasn't. Honestly, I wasn't. But I didn't realize he had those stats because it didn't seem like he made as much of an impact. Now, he plays hard, probably not as physical as he wants, kind of like Evan Mobley. And he's a good rim protector, I think. He just doesn't do a lot offensively, which is fine. But Charles Barkley was saying get the ball to Evan Mobley and Jared Allen down low because they can't stop him. And yeah, he does a good job on the glass, especially when he's not being boxed out by Karl-Anthony Towns. And he's got to deal with a wing more that's boxing him out. He has an advantage, but to me, he needs to get a little more skilled down low so they can give him the ball so he can take advantage of matchups more. And maybe he is, they just don't give it to him because they got so many other options, but I think he needs to develop his offensive game so he could be more of an impact because he's super athletic and he uses his athleticism well for finishing. But I think he could, if he had a few more moves and he did them consistently, he could be a much bigger impact on the game. We'll talk about Donovan Mitchell next. First I want to say, earlier in the year, people were comparing Donovan Mitchell to Luka Doncic as far as what they are on the defensive end. Donovan Mitchell is, and maybe he wasn't playing defense as hard in the regular season, but I highly doubt he is close to as bad a defender as Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is the worst defender I've seen in the NBA. And it's not only his effort. His effort is terrible sometimes, and he talks to the ref, and he stays on the offensive end, and he doesn't get back on defense. But even when he tries, he is just not defensively gifted in any way, almost. And I don't know if it's because he just didn't play defense growing up, so he just hasn't learned how to get better at it because he doesn't do it. But his foot speed on defense and I don't even know how to explain it, but it's almost like he's stronger on the offensive end than the defensive end. Like, people just bully him more on the defensive end. And he tries to guess the spot too much instead of just, you could play defense like when they when they make a move, your defensive slide is back instead of beating them to the spot. That's the best way for a lot of people to play defense. And he could do that, but he doesn't. He tries to guess the spot and beat them right at the spot. And he gets a lot of blocking fouls that way. He is a horrible defender. Donovan Mitchell is a good defender. He could be better. He could be more intense and consistently physical. But people don't beat him off the dribble, and he gives decent ball pressure. Like, the fact that he was in conversations with Luka Doncic as a defender, it's not even close. He's still too passive to me. Still wasn't aggressive enough. Got 18 shots. Went to the line 9 times. I mean, I keep saying that in all my podcasts, so I don't really want to go too far into that, but I just think he needs to be more aggressive. And yeah, I know he part of it today was he could have been dealing with an injury or an illness. I think he was dealing with that. I'm not totally sure when I tried to look it up online, but I think he's dealing with an injury. Not an illness, but an injury. James Harden, they didn't exploit him on defense as much today. Jalen Brunson tried to at the end, but Donovan Mitchell started picking up Jalen Brunson, and he didn't really get the matchup as much as he really wanted to. So that wasn't as big a problem. But I don't know. There's just a lot to deal with James Harden. He's a great player, and I think he's improved since the last few years. He's been dealing with hamstrings to closer to Houston Rocket James Harden. And that's a great player to have on your team, and he helps them a lot. But sometimes you just wonder if it's worth what you're dealing with. I mean, to see his quote, and maybe I probably should go watch the interview or whenever he said this quote, the context of it. Because whenever you hear a quote, it's like 9 times out of 10, the quote to me on TV is not as bad as what you hear. But sometimes it is. Sometimes it's exactly as bad as how you hear the quote, but a lot of times it's like they take it out of context, or even if it's in context, when you hear the whole interview, they say a lot of other things that kind of make that not as prominent as part of their interview. Like, they don't feel as strongly about it as the media is making it out to be. But just to take the quote, going against what I just said, that for him, when they talk about him being killed by Jalen Brunson last game, it's basically, it's not me, it's a team effort. And you got destroyed by Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson does that to a lot of people at the end of games. He does. But the reason he was doing it to you, a lot of it was your defense, not Jalen Brunson. He just won't try hard enough on defense, and he's not going to get it. And, you're just going to have to deal with that if he's on your team. It's at this point, are you really going to coach him to be a better defender when he's, 36? He's 36 years old. It'd be tough. I feel like he's more capable than he's giving off because he's just not trying. He just is not giving his full effort. Not that there's no effort, but he's not giving full effort. And like today, when they did exploit, the one time I remember them exploiting James Harden towards the end of the clutch, which they tried to go back to it, I really couldn't. I mean, he tried to flop a little bit. I mean, you're doing that at the end of the game when the Knicks are pulling away from you. And it was a flop where he wasn't even totally in front of Jalen Brunson. He was halfway to the side of him. And it's like, why are you flopping? And then just play defense. So, I don't know, you got to deal with that. He's not going to play defense. And then, on the other end, he's amazing offensively. Not now, but, in his prime, probably one of the best offensive players ever. But he doesn't handle pressure well in the full court a lot of time. I remember, years ago, when the Rockets got pressed by the Celtics, I think in a regular season game. Well, it had to be because they definitely didn't mean the championship. And he got offensive fouls on Marcus Smart. Now, Marcus Smart was probably flopping a little bit, but he was throwing bows. or pushing off or something. He doesn't handle pressure well because he doesn't play strong enough sometimes. He just gets as strong as he is with his handle and as strong as he is physically and as strong as he is a lot of the time. A lot of the time he's loose with the ball and just doesn't. He's just too lazy, I think. I mean, he's just too lazy to make the right plays and be strong with the ball. So you got to deal with his turnovers or just bad decisions, loose passes and stuff. And it's like, he puts a cap on your defense. Not that I don't know if their defense would really level up that much even without Harden. But I mean, to some degree it would, but not like to one of the best defenses in the league. Even though I like their defense, they got a good defense. And then on offense, he slows you down some. Now their coach is right. Kenny Atkinson is right. They wouldn't be this far. They wouldn't have made it out the first round if it weren't for James Harden. He's an amazing, amazing player, and like I said, to me, he's gotten better for the last few years. When he was dealing with hamstring problems. But it just makes you wonder, is it worth it? So, I don't know. Sam Merrill, Richard Jefferson said in the middle of the game that he didn't think that the Cavs had a hangover from last game, but he thought maybe Sam Merrill, he kind of alluded to me that Sam Merrill might have one, because he missed that shot that could have won in the game at the very end. He went 1 for 8 from the field, 0 for 7 from 3, and he only hit half of his free throws, 2 for 4, which was kind of weird that the Cavs shot 22 of 32 from the free throw line, which it seemed like they shot bad, which that's not that good. That's 68.8%. But the Knicks did even worse. They shot 57.1. And at one point, it was 4 for 10. It went up to 8 out of 14 by the end of the game. So, I don't know. It's very possible that Sam Merrill could have been in his own head a little bit. This game, he was getting good looks, just not knocking him down. The only shot I think he made was like a drive to the basket, which maybe he should have done more, because honestly, he attacks the basket pretty well. So, he played hard on defense, though. I thought Dennis Schroeder played good. He gets to the paint. He makes good decisions. Only had 4 points, 2 of 5. He did miss both his free throws. But I always think he plays pretty good and helps them a lot by getting to the basket. Max Strus, they just didn't shoot the ball well, and he was included in that 1 of 7 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3. But I think overall he played a good game, played hard on defense. He had one dumb foul at the end, and he complains to the refs a lot. And I know a lot of players do, but he does a lot. He actually fouled out this game. But overall, I thought he played good. He was physical down low, I think, and he made good decisions. So. And Jalen Tyson might have proved me wrong, because he played better than Keon Ellis did the other night. Had 4 points, had a good layup off a pick and roll to the rim, hit 2 free throws, and was active on defense, very active on defense, helps them on defense a lot. So, I still would say Keon Ellis is a better player than him, but I can't say that he really deserves to be in the game over Tyson after the game tonight. Atkinson might be making the right decision. So, to move on to the Knicks, it didn't really, but I was just thinking, during the game, even though this doesn't really apply to tonight, because the Knicks kind of had control for most of the game, except the Cavs kind of did it at the beginning, and that's when I was kind of thinking of it. To me, the Knicks play a dangerous game because a lot of teams are better than them overall over the whole course of the game, and then the Knicks kind of take over at the end. And like the other night, they came back from it. But are you going to be able to come back against all these teams all the time? And I still think the Knicks are going to win it all, but I don't know. I wish they could. But it's tough to expect the efficiency that they get at the end of the game throughout the game. So it's tough with that too. Can you really expect that Brunson and Bridges to hit all their shots the whole game? I don't know, but they do it in the clutch a lot of the time. So I don't know. It's just the way they play what's good for them. They don't have a lot of margin for error, and that kind of worries me, especially if this series isn't over. Like they said at the end of the game, Cleveland was down 0-2 to the Pistons. and they came back and won in 7 games at Detroit in the 7th game. So, this series is far from over. But especially if I don't even want to look past it, but if they get through this series, because I want the Knicks to win because I picked them to win, honestly. So, but if they get through this series, next series, the two juggernauts are playing an entirely different game of basketball than you're playing right now, in a way. The level they're at, and are the leads going to get too big that you can't come back from them? So, I don't know. I was really impressed with OG Anunoby tonight. He might get to the basket better than I thought he did. And I said last podcast that Dennis Schroeder gets better to the basket than OG Anunoby. That's not true. That's just not true. I think he's getting better with his ball handling and his physicality when he gets to the rim. He's a really good player, and like I said in the last podcast, I think he could be a star if his ball handling keeps getting better and he becomes more aggressive. OG Anunoby could be a star player. I don't know how old he is. He's 28. Well, he doesn't have much more time as far as time where he can improve, but he's not far away from being a star. Now, he might not be in the right situation to be that because he's asked to be more of a role player, and he probably doesn't want to leave because he's in a really good situation. But he's a really good underrated player. Josh Hart played amazing. I was talking about him in the podcast because they were playing off of him from 3, and I don't know. I guess they probably do that a lot, but I just didn't ever. I don't know. Never clicked that Josh Hart they're not guarding him from the 3-point line, and how does that affect their spacing? Which is not that big a deal because that happens to a lot of bigs, and he's basically their power forward. But he went 5 for 11 from 3, and I really didn't even notice it until like the third quarter that he was really scoring like that. But for not having a tight hand on the ball, he gets down really low and he really gets to the paint. And then, he really doesn't cross over. He just goes one way, but he'll do a 2-foot jump stop. And he's not bad at those little turnaround fadeaways. And if he's not doing a turnaround fadeaway, he's honestly making a lot of good decisions. So, I was really, really impressed with how Josh Hart played tonight. He attacked the glass like he always does. He plays defense like he always does with the 26 points, 10 for 21 from the field, 5 for 11 from 3, 7 assists. He played a great game tonight. It might have been the biggest reason why they won. Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges, he got a lot of flack earlier in the playoffs because he wasn't doing as well, but to me, he's their second most important player, and he played great tonight. 9 of 12 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3 from the jump. He was scoring. He had a inbound pass steal to get them to make it 5-0 way early in the game. He drives a lot better than I think people give him credit for, and his shot is really hard to block from 3, especially from the mid range. He's a really good player, and he played really good tonight. Brunson, I think that Brunson's a really good player, but to me, even though I think he's the best closer in the game, and him and Bridges, and especially Brunson, are the reasons why I picked them to win the whole thing, I think he is a little overrated because he just doesn't get as much separation with his dribble moves to the basket as the player of caliber that they talk about him as. And some of it's his height. I think a lot of people compare Jalen Brunson to Steph Curry. But Stephen Curry is an inch taller, and his handle's better. The way he gets downhill is better. It just is. And then Curry also takes these shots that as great as Jalen Brunson is hitting hitting shots in the mid range and the 3 that are hard to block, Curry's even better. Curry's on another level with that. The catch and shoot stuff Curry does, or the fading away, and the range that Curry has. His shots are unguardable in a sense on another level than Brunson's. So you can't really compare him to Curry to me. And Curry finishes better than Brunson. I mean, he has the floater finger rolls almost from the middle of the paint, sometimes almost the free throw line. And then he honestly, as much as people want to call Brunson so he's tough and he's physical, in his later career, Curry is better at getting better position on the guy guarding him and using his shoulder and hitting layups. He just is. So what he does is a lot more sustainable than Brunson. Not that what Brunson does isn't sustainable, but I think Brunson is not as good at. I don't want to say not as good as getting his shot off, because it gets to a certain point of the game, and a lot of the stuff he does, the mid-range stuff, he can get that off just as good as anybody. One of the best in the league. But, there's a lot of times where he attacks and he has to stop in the middle of the lane because he can't do anything. And he does his little pivots and he tries to get off his mid-range and he can't. There's a lot of times he kind of gets bottled up more than the players that are talked about of his caliber. But he's still the best closer in the league to me, and the biggest reason why I have the Knicks winning it all. But there's limitations to his game in another sense, which is kind of hard to say because I feel like you had to watch it. You had to watch how there's certain times where he can get his shot off over anybody, and then there's certain times where just his ball handling and his size make it to where he can't really get past his defender enough, and he has to pick up his dribble or he can't do anything. But yeah. Mitchell Robinson is having a tough series. He's not getting a lot of minutes. He went 0 for 4 from the free throw line tonight, and he didn't get a lot of minutes after that. And I think it was the right decision. They were going to foul him. He's going to go to the line and miss free throws. He made all his field goals. He was 2 for 2, had 4 points, and he had 4 rebounds in 12 minutes. So he was good while he was out there, but he's got to hit more of his free throws. So, I don't know. And I want to talk about Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson had 4 points, made all his shots, all his 2 shots. I think he was really good today. Had kind of, I don't know if he called it a reverse pivot, but he kind of opened up and put his foot back like a drop step from the wing in semi-transition. And, Max Strus wasn't guarding him face up, and then he attacked the rim hard, got a layup, and then he got in the middle of the floor another time. Someone gave it to him, and he hit a nice floater. I think he's very offensively talented, and I said the other day he's more of a shooter now, and I think that's true, but I think he could do more with the ball if he wanted to, or if the team needed him to, and I think he's a good addition to this team this year. He's a lot taller, I feel like, than you think he is, or I thought he was. He's 6'5". I think he's really skilled in the paint area as far as getting his shot off, and he's very confident in his shot. I think he's a really good player. So that's it for tonight. That's the podcast. Thank you for anybody that listened, and see you.